Hang on, fellas. Well, I'm eating a Jolly Rancher. Hang on. Hang on. It's so good. It's so good. Hang on, man. I can't. God damn it, man. Right? Hang on. I don't want to start the show until I'm. How JoJo D? I apologize. I apologize. I've been out. Shut up, Bacon Magma. He says 27 minutes late. I'm late today. I didn't do much streaming except a little bit of game streaming this week. I apologize. I hate that, but just so you know, I won working. I want to give you guys an update. And then we will get into a bunch. There's a lot of sort of news and discussions to have. The phone lines are open if you want to call in on the Discord. So, but what I've been doing is, finally the God of War April gifts, which are for God of War members that were members in April, are coming to my home on Wednesday. My wonderful new assistant, Jill, is going to get those out Wednesday, Thursday of next week. It is not what I originally planned. When I reveal what they are, you'll go, oh, I get why, because it's not ready yet. But this is still good. I think you'll like it. It's fun. It's stupid, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I've been doing that. I'm doing something brand new for Cult of Calypso members and above. Normal members will get to see it as well, but there's going to be additions for the higher members. I showed Rob the mod yesterday to make sure I wasn't crazy and it wasn't stupid. He seemed to think it was pretty cool. And so that is going through a company in France, though, and so I'm trying to get a little bit of details on that. I think you'll really like it. I think it's very, very cool. I've been doing that. And obviously, I've been turning this stream into a podcast, and that has been really challenging. I've got a couple of people who have offered to help me edit because the podcast can't be as rambling as this, and so it takes a long fucking time to edit that and get that together. So I apologize. I'm just taking on a lot of stuff to try to improve the show. The videos I think we've been putting out recently have been a bit deeper in that it's like we did the one about all the God of War influences. I did the one about, things that only, Gen X gamers can relate to and maybe millennials. That takes a lot longer. So I'm not, this coming week will be a normal stream schedule. I just giving you a heads up. Oh, and also fixing the visuals. If you look at the thing right now, it says DW Octorok. This is just my own thing, okay? I'm rebranding and adjusting all the screens, right? So if you are a God of War tier member, there's all God of War tier members are getting a full banner page now or section, and that was just sort of a test for layout. So I'm going to be reaching out to those members and saying, hey, you can put whatever the fuck you want there. Put a comic strip, put a saying. If you're advertising on the show, I'll put your ad there, whatever you want. But I wanted to make some more space. So I've just been doing a lot sort of behind the scenes shit. But I do apologize. The last thing I've been doing besides playing a lot of games, I've been playing, I don't fucking know. It's something called WilderMyth. I've been playing WilderMyth. And it's interesting. People were raving about it. I hasn't quite gotten its hooks in me. But it's kind of this RPG tactical strategy game. But it's done like with a dungeon master, an AI dungeon master. So it really does embrace the fact that it comes from like board games and D&D and all that shit. And it's cool so far. I've been playing that. I've been playing a lot of Ghost Tsushima, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then, yes, Back4Blood I played a little bit of. Joe, we will talk about that. But then the coolest game I've been playing is this game. And if you're not looking at your screen, if you're listening to the podcast, there's these two little buttons, okay? And I'm holding them up, and they're like big buttons, like the Staples easy button or yes button or whatever the fuck that was called. But they have little puppy dogs on them. And we are training our dog Ace to speak by using buttons, okay? So dogs can know up to 36 of these is the record. Right now, we're just starting with 3, which is, I only brought 2 of them. This is when he wants a treat.
Pee-pees.
Oh, that's when he has to go outside. That's my kid saying pee-pees. That's how he knows to go out.
Pee-pees.
So if he's got to go out, he just hits the button with his paw.
Pee-pees.
And he says pee-pees, right? And then, what's this one?
Pets.
This is if he wants, like, love and attention and affection. So if he's, like, sitting around and we're like, what do you want? What do you want? He goes up to this one.
Pets.
And he's like, I want you to play with me. And then the other one we have is treats, which is not eating, but just like, hey, I want you to toss me a fucking snack or whatever. And it actually works. It actually fucking works. And if you don't believe me, go online and look up videos of this. It's incredible. I mean, again, I don't think the dog actually understands the concept. Hogwash says, "Is there a kill me button?" I'll make one for you, Hogwash. I don't think the dog. I'm not suggesting the dog understands the concept this, he doesn't know the words. He's just like, oh, red button gets me food or lets me go outside, right? And speaking of buttons, if you like the show, I'm going to get Ace to train you to kind of smash the like button. Please please hit it if you like it. Or the notification button is even more important. Anyway, whatever. So that's what I've been doing. Proto says, dude, my dog would hit the treat button every day, every second of the day. No, I know. We have to take it away. He threw up the next day. He was getting so many treats. But point is, I've been busy. Point is, let's talk about the world of video games. Can we talk about that? I want to talk briefly before we get into PSVR2, which is sort of the kickoff story of today. I want to talk about something I have come back to because there's just, you know what? I have to talk about something first. I have to talk about something awful that made me really fucking sad. I want to show you this tweet. So, as some of you guys know, I have no shame in this. I search my name from time to time on, Twitter. Because I like to know, are people talking shit? And if I do, I can stir it up. Or if people have questions, they don't know my my Twitter handle. Or sometimes it's just like, I want to know, what do they like about my games? What do they don't like? I'm curious. Are they watching my stream, right? I have no shame in this, okay? So I want to tell you that the other night I happened upon this tweet as I'm searching my name. And it's this guy at a Restless Forest talking to a woman, Dana Cruz, who I guess she's an art director at Riot Games. And they're talking about all of the shit that's going on in the industry right now about sexual harassment and toxic work environments and all of that stuff, okay? And I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. And then this guy, a Restless Forest, this is what he tweets. Danny, I think that's her name, says, sadly, it's not just Blizzard where this goes on. I've experienced discrimination, harassment, and just pure disrespect due to my gender at previous jobs too. She says, at the very least, hopefully this will enact change for everyone there and Blizzard will be better off in the future. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the ramifications of what's happening over at Activision in a little bit as well. But, okay, so this guy, Restless Forest, chimes in. Let me just show you this tweet. This caught me absolutely sucker punch me. This guy says, George PM says, Restless Forest, you're right, talking to Danny. He says, I also experienced those things. I remember David Jaffe making gay jokes about me in my first job as QA, which is tester. A union needs to form, I think, strength in numbers. Okay. Well, I was, what are you talking about? So at first, and I wrote to him, I'll tell you where this goes. At first I was just like going, okay, maybe this is because I didn't know who this guy is. And I know it sounds terrible, but I don't remember everybody I've worked with. That's less about them and more about my ADD. I have to really work with you for a while to go, oh, I remember that person. But anyway, so I'm like, maybe if I worked with this guy back in the day on Twisted Metal 2 in 1995, it wouldn't surprise me if we were still in the headspace of doing things like saying, using the word gay, but in a derogatory way, right? So if we were like going, oh, that's, whatever, but we were like, oh, that's so fucking, whatever, that would absolutely not surprise me. But goodness gracious, that is decades, multiple decades ago. I am absolutely not that guy. Not because I'm like, oh, I've been trained and conditioned not to, run the risk of getting myself in trouble. But because since then, my brother came out. I have LGBT children. Not that means that's what makes you compassionate, but I was able to experience a lot more people in my life that I'm close to, and it was able to make me just go, oh my God. Not that I ever had a problem with gay folks, but I never really put two and two together and said, when you're kind of saying, oh, that's GAY, that's an insult to individual humans, right? So anyway, the point is, I'm not that guy at all. And so I write to this guy, and here's what I say. I said, will you mind reminding me of details? What game were you QA on? And when was this? If I was just starting out, I could see me saying insensitive things, but I can't fathom I ever made fun of an individual for being gay, because I've never had a problem with anybody being gay or straight. It's none of my business. I don't care. I want people to be happy. But if I ever did that, I am terribly sorry. Wow. Now this guy says, he says way back, which wasn't way back. He says Drawn to Death. Drawn to Death is the last game. Well, not the last game I worked on, but one of the last games I worked on at Bartlett Jones. So he's got to be talking 2016? 2016? He says, you said something as a snide aside a couple of times. And I wrote back, and I haven't heard back from him. I said, Drawn to Death was not that long ago. Can you please be specific? I'm not saying you were wrong, but I'm stunned. I would have made fun of anyone for their sexual identity. Again, if I did, wow, I hope to God it was a misunderstanding and I said something without knowing it. How horrid. He says, I'm not repeating what you said here. That's humiliating, and some troll would pick it up later. So I sent him a direct message. And I'm not going to show you what it said, but the gist of it was, let me just go to it. And this was 3 days ago. I said, is this a better place for me to ask? This was the private message. I said, once again, I'm just so sorry for offending you and making you feel bad. I can assure you that was not my intent. I'm still hoping it was a miscommunication, blah, 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 blah. And he hasn't gotten back to me. The only thing I can think of that I said, and since then, my brother, who is gay, has really kind of made it clear to me. It's like, when you say cocksucker, like I would use that, I would use cocksucker all the time. Like, you fucking cocksucker. Like if we were playing with the QA guys and somebody killed me or headshotted me or won, it would absolutely, I would say, oh yeah, I probably did call someone cocksucker. Absolutely. Just like it rolls off the tongue as easily as motherfucker for me, but not anymore, because my brother is like, well, why do you say that as an insult? I'm like, I don't know. It's just an insult. He's like, well, think about it. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you are basically saying it's a negative thing. And if you're a woman, but more importantly, it's kind of used to sort of insult gay people. So I have to think it was that, because it cannot have been anything else. The fact he hasn't written me back, though, is troubling. Or maybe he's like, oh, it wasn't you, Jaffe, it was someone else. I have no idea. But I was very saddened to see this, because that is not me. That is not me. Yeah, that one slips out once in a while, says Eternal. Yeah, it does. It does. And I try to get better at it. Death Proof says the gay folk are coming for you. Well, I hope not. But look, I have no problem owning up to shit that I've done. Like, I've said sexist statements before. I've been called out, and I'm like, oh, I didn't. Here's what I can guarantee you. Here's what I can absolutely guarantee you. There has never been any malicious intent. There has been ignorance. So like when I made a joke about women not being able, it wasn't this literal, but the essence of it was women maybe can't play Twisted Metal as well as men. That wasn't me taking the piss out of women. That was just me going, this is what I think. And someone points out that's a really sexist attitude. I'm like, oh, you're right. When my brother points out the word cocksucker is a gay slur, I'm like, oh shit, you're right. So, I've fucked up before, but it's never been because I'm trying to hurt anybody. Jokes aside, I think the dude on Twitter may be a clout chaser. I don't know, Random. He may be, but I mean, I'd like to hear back from him, because I really hate the fact that someone out there thinks I was intentionally hurting them. I will. The thing that's really bad, though, I don't remember this guy. I remember some of the testers. I don't remember this motherfucker. I'm looking at a picture of him right now, and I'm like, you were a tester that I worked with a couple of years ago, and I don't remember you? I'm in some serious fucking mental problems. I'm in some trouble. I'm in some fucking trouble. And I'm only 50, and I know that's older than a lot of you guys. Fuck you, Hogwash. Hogwash is way older. Let me tell you something. Every time Vince McMahon releases people from the WWE, and these days it's like a weekly fucking event, I hope to God you're on that list. And it's like, but he doesn't work for the WWE. I don't care. I don't care. I want you released from the WWE. That's what I want.
Give me your fucking money! Here comes the money!
Listen, Ryan Butcher dropped a super chat. Thanks, sir. He says, what's up, Papa J? Well, not much, sir. We're just doing a chat. I'm talking about, I guess, my homophobic tendencies. I'm also smoking the old pipe. And I'm reading your chat. He says, I haven't been able to catch the live stream in a long time. I'm glad you're here. He says, loving the podcast. They get me through work. Keep it up, y'all. So-and-so. Thank you, Ryan Butcher. I appreciate that. I will. The real trick on the podcast is going to be, am I going to continue to keep editing them within an inch of their life? Right now, if you listen to the podcast, there's new material added. There are all the ums and shit are taken out. Things are rearranged in order to make more sense. I don't know if I can do that and still do the streams at the same time, but we'll see. But I appreciate you listening. Thank you, sir.
What kind of a Thanksgiving dinner is this? Where's the turkey, Chuck? Where's the pumpkin pie?
Every year since I played the game Gun, which was from Neversoft, and I loved it. And I played that over Thanksgiving. And the very first Thanksgiving game I played that I really got the sense it was a Thanksgiving game was Diddy Kong Racing when that came out. And I was like, oh, I love it when a game hits at Thanksgiving. And you know, it really, even though, yeah, you spend time with your family and go on walks and all that stuff, it really kind of makes you, it really builds that memory in your mind of Thanksgiving and really makes Thanksgiving feel really good, for me anyway. So I did Diddy Kong and then Gun, and since Gun, I've always been looking for a great Thanksgiving game. So a lot of news has been dropping about Ghost of Tsushima lately, which we'll talk about in just a second. And I was just like, oh my God, because I finally last night 100%ed the first third of the island, right? That's how thorough I am. I'm going through, I want to liberate the whole island before I move on. So now I'm into the second chunk, right? I love this game, one of my favorite games of all time, just fucking delightful. So I'm playing the shit out of this game, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going through this kind of like, you know, wintry fall foliage kind of thing, and I'm like, this is my Thanksgiving game. And I'm having to decide if I am going to ultimately finish it or wait for the director's cut, which is coming out on the 20th of this month, and then wait until November and start playing it in November, because I still have other games to finish and new games to get to, but I don't know if I'm going to have the discipline, because when I went back a couple days ago and started playing Ghost of Tsushima, I was just like, my God, this game is so goddamn good. Do you know what? Let me tell you something. I had a conversation, and I cannot tell you with who, and I am really sorry I can't. You would be like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ, Jaffe, of course. You know who I'm talking about at Sony, somebody associated with Sony PlayStation. That's all I'll say. And he said to me, he says, you know, Jaffe, in this day and age, Ghost of Tsushima would not have been greenlit at Sony. And he would know. He would be in a position to know. I was just like, shit, are you serious? He's like, yeah, it's too risky. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad it kind of made it before the barn doors closed. But anyway, so I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima. Here's what we know. Player versus player mode. Legends is getting upgraded. The main upgrade is going to be, I mean, they're upping level caps and they're upping cosmetics. But they're also doing two things. They're separating it from the main game in terms of you can buy it for $20 as a standalone, which I think is interesting. I don't know if that's going to work. Part of me is just make it free to play and charge for shit, but whatever. And they're adding a PvP mode, which is really interesting. It's not like combat against each other. It's you and your partner are attacking hordes or bad guys, and your enemy and their partner, it's like 4 player max, are attacking hordes and bad guys. And you're trying to get the most kills, but there are things that you do that you can, it's almost like there was a game, Tetris, that was like Bombtris or something, where you could send bombs over to your enemy when you were competing at Tetris. We can do stuff that can like fuck up the other team, like take health away or make enemies stronger or whatever. So you're indirectly competing. But they're continuing to add to this, and that's free. If you already have Ghost of Tsushima 4 or 5, you don't have to pay a dime for this. So these people who were bitching about $10 for the $70 version, come on, really? All they do is give you free shit. But anyway, so that's coming out September 3rd, and the separate Legends mode is coming out September 3rd. The director's cut is coming out August 20th, and I need to figure out, am I going to ultimately play it or wait? Yeah, Legends is great, Stingray. They just nailed it immediately. I liked their Horde mode better than Uncharted Horde mode. That was fantastic. You never played multiplayer games, but I was addicted to Legends. It was a lot of fun, Mercury says. Yeah, that's exactly right. There's something about it that is more engaging to me than a traditional multiplayer game, including like Back4Blood, which I played this week, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So anyway, I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima last night, I'm walking through the forest with the horse last night, and I start to think about PSVR2. Okay, now let me give you my sense of anybody who watches this stream knows that I am a disappointed fan of virtual reality. I have all the headsets for the most part. I don't have the Vive, but I have the S, the Oculus S, I have the Quest, I have the PSVR. I don't have Quest 2. And I'm very disappointed in it because, like, the first time I remember going to the Oculus studios that was in Orange County at the time. They still may be there. I don't know where they work from anymore. And it was the first time I put on, I think it was called Haven, that mech game. And I put on Oculus, and my attorney was there at the time, and he had already done it because he was repping them. And he was just like, well, look around. And I'm like, oh my God. Because I could stand up and it tracked me. I could turn around and it tracked me. I was so fucking immersed. And from that moment on, I was in love with virtual reality, and I couldn't wait. And I got PSVR 2, and it was too many wires and the fucking move controllers and all this shit. It was cool, but okay, I'm done. But then Quest comes out, and Quest had everything I thought that was going to solve the problems that I have with VR, which is it's room scale. You don't have to have any cameras set up. Room scale meaning that it tracks your position. It's position based. So if you sit down, stand up, crawl, whatever, it knows what you're doing and it takes it into account. You can draw a goddamn border around your environment, so you don't have to have like a room for VR anymore. It's like it goes with you. It's super portable, and you can make this very convenient, very fun room. And I was like, okay, this is going to change everything. This is going to make VR mainstream. And I loved it. But lo and behold, it was only maybe 4 months, and I stopped playing it because ultimately it felt gimmicky. And I don't mean that like it was shitty. I just mean that like the work you have to go through, and it's work. It's the, your mileage will vary. But for me, plugging it up, keeping it charged, changing the batteries, putting it on, getting a little hotter and a little less comfortable than sitting here playing at my monitor or on the couch on the TV. All those are little things that chip away. And the only reason you're gonna do it and jump through those little hoops, they're little, but the only reason you're gonna do that is if the game on the other side is worth it. And what I found is after the gimmick and the just that sense of physical immersion and spatial immersion wore off, you were left with games that weren't great. At best, Resident Evil 7, I played all in VR and I loved it. The best VR experience I've ever had. I played Alex. I didn't finish it. I got bored of it. I thought it was a typical first-person shooter. I know maybe I didn't spend long enough time with it, but it didn't do much for me. And so for me, it was like, okay, it's, the issue is not, the immersion is in game design, right? It's not in, as much as it's nice to be in this space, if there's not anything interesting to do, or what I have to do is more interesting and easier, just by turning on my PS5 or my PC or my Xbox, fuck it, I'll do that. So I had written off VR, and my head was kind of moving towards AR, because I still think AR is going to change the fucking world. But Sony comes out, as some of you guys know, and they actually don't come out. We know they've been working on PSVR 2, but there was a conference that happened the other day, and a website, what are these guys called? They might even be in the chat right now. Not Upload VR. PSVR Without Parole is their name of their channel, which I thought was interesting. And I haven't listened to their video yet, but a lot of people picked this up. I'm going off of Games Radar right now. And let me just tell you some of the specs first, because they are impressive, but that is not why I'm impressed. Let me give you some tech shit, then I want to talk about why I'm really absolutely super excited. Okay, we know that they're going to reveal launch dates early 2022 is what they say, or is at least what has been leaked from that meeting. So January, February, we'll know when this is coming out, hopefully next year. What we don't know yet is there still a bunch of fucking wires? Is there still a single wire? There probably is a single wire sending it to the PS5. I can't imagine. We know it. There's no way this is standalone, because then they would have to have all this tech built in. This is going to be taking its power from the PlayStation 5. But hopefully, I assume, they haven't announced, but I have to assume, hopefully it's just going to be a single wire, right? Because they've already, if you're looking at your screen right now, they've already shown the controls. Let me show you these real quick if you haven't seen them. The controls are not going to be move controllers, thank God. They're going to be these much more like the Oculus Quest controllers, but they have haptic feedback. The headset itself has haptic feedback, so if you get shot in the head or if you get jostled around, your actual headset will vibrate a little bit. There is resistance triggers in there, and it also does finger tracking, right? I'm almost certain it's not going to have a camera. They would be morons to put a camera. I have to assume they're doing it like Oculus does it, where it's just there's cameras out facing, and it'll raise the price a little bit, but you don't have to worry about the setup, because that's been a crucial reason PSVR is collecting dust in most people's homes, right? Because it's too much of a fucking pain in the ass, and it doesn't track you wherever you go. Okay, widest field of view of any kind of, at least at this price and close to what I think this price is going to be on the market. And then they're doing this thing called, and this is news to me. I've kind of, waned on the tech a little bit, but some of the VR guys should be able to tell you in the chat. But it's like Foveal, is that how you pronounce it? But it's 4K. And at first I was like, well, how are they going to do that? Because if you remember PSVR or any VR, you can't have fluctuating frame rates or you'll get sick, right? So I want to say we were always having to do, because we did some VR prototypes at Bartlett Jones, each eye had to be sending 60 at the least. And I think they were recommending 90 for each eye. And now they're saying you're going to have double 4K displays on each eye and higher resolution than obviously PSVR. How are you going to do that? And they're like, oh, well, we're doing this thing, this Foveal thing. And I've heard about this. No, and the Uncle, it's not, it isn't going to be, Uncle in the chat says haptics are going to be the game changer. Nope. That'll be nice, but nope. Foveated rendering. Yes, Darth Nugget. So basically it's going to have eye tracking. And what that'll do is wherever you're looking, it's just going to render at the highest level a percentage of your vision in the center, which is all you're really noticing. And as it gets further out on your peripheral, it gets less and less dramatic. I thought this was happening already on PC. It probably is. But anyway, maybe that's how they're going to get the 4K. The high concept takeaway, though, is that you are going to play this and it's going to look a lot crisper, a lot better than VR. I don't think they'll look as good as traditional PS5 games because you only have to render one screen once. But it'll look pretty fucking good. It'll look pretty fucking good. All that's great. Sounds fine. If that's all they would have announced, I would be like, okay, maybe I'll pick it up. Probably not. Maybe I'll pick it up. The eye tracker is cool, not just for the rendering, but because there are games that you can do eye tracking with. I mean, there are very interesting, whether you're just doing like shooting by moving your eyeballs around and tracking. There's a lot of interesting play mechanics you can create, like, getting somebody through a maze without touching the walls and shit, but, how careful you can, you can do mini games like Don't Blink. I mean, there's a lot of cool shit you could do with it that may just be gimmicky but still fun. Here is the sentence or the paragraph that got me excited, though, okay? Because the problem with VR is once the gimmick, which is a brilliant gimmick, wears off. I mean, I'm playing Space Trainer, and I'm in my living room, and it's room scale. So I can walk around, and there's a giant spaceship, and the scale feels massive. And I'm literally walking around my living room feeling like Ben Kenobi in Attack of the Clones when he was fighting Boba Fett, or Jango Fett, trying to get back to his ship to take off after he had visited the clone factory on that water planet. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm just like, this is amazing. But after 5-10 minutes, I'm like, yeah, but I'm bored. All I'm doing is shooting, okay? Well, listen to this. This is the secret sauce that I don't think anyone else but Sony can do. And this is where Sony's brilliant, what I always say, Sony has a lot of work to be diversified with their AAA games. There's a problem there, and they're getting more expensive. But this is what VR is missing, and they do it better than anyone else. It says, lastly, this is the article from Games Radar. Lastly, while the leak doesn't include any info on any new games specifically, Sony is reportedly planning to move away from VR experiences by focusing on flat-screen VR hybrid games. These games will reportedly let you download and install just one version or the other, depending on what you want to play, with Sony apparently making a big push to remaster original PSVR games. Who gives a shit about that? I don't care about that. What I care about is the fact that you are now going to, if I read this correctly, what they're saying is games like Ghost Tsushima 2. Let's just take Ghost Tsushima 2. Ghost Tsushima 2 is going to come out, And if I'm reading this correctly and you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, you tell me if I'm wrong. If I'm reading it wrong, I'm going to be able to say I want to play that. It'd be like Resident Evil 7. It's a game first. It's a game from their top studios. It's not like, well, some of the guys here at Insomniac are into VR. Yeah, well, we got like a C team, a B team, or it's an A team, but there's only 6 of them because most guys are on the big money stuff. We're going to let them make something. You know, it's not that. It is because that's where Sony has always faltered with peripherals. Unlike Nintendo, that's like, look, we have specific Switch teams, Game Boy teams. We have specific console teams. It's always been almost like, hey, we're doing this thing called the Vita. We'll have a little small team over at Naughty Dog doing something, or it's never been this. This is brilliant. This is Ghost of Tsushima 2. If you want to put your headset on and play it, if I'm reading this right, you can play it. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to become a VR game, which is fine. It's wonderful to be in first person in VR, but to be in the world of VR, it doesn't matter really. The sense of immersion in place is still there, even if you're looking at characters you're controlling that are not your point of view. It's like almost like an action figure set come to life. So imagine walking through the woods like I was the other night with your horse, and all the leaves are going by and the rose petals are going by, and you're just like, what the then the game itself is already great because that's what came first. And then the VR is sort of what gets not slabbed on top of it, but it hopefully they'll have some special things just for VR. But that I think is going to change everything. And no, Oculus can't do what they do. They're trying, but they can't. None of their games have been as good as first party games. Valve so far, I don't think Alex is the shit. So I am absolutely excited by this. Well, see, Bacon Magma, you're a moron then. My guess is, Bacon Magma, you've never played VR then. You want fully dedicated VR games, not this hybrid stuff. That's just dumb. Because ultimately, fully dedicated VR games means nothing. This is what I think a lot of people don't get. They get caught up in the tech and in the sense of presence. And what they forget about is that wears off. That's just tech. If the game underlying it isn't compelling, once you get over the tech, it's just whatever. Who gives a shit? This is better because it makes VR less niche, says Eternal, and the games will be higher quality. Exactly. So PSVR Underground says the articles, or not the article, but they specifically stated that these games we're talking about will feel built from the ground up for VR as well. Okay, whatever. I don't know about, I'm not saying you're wrong that they stated that. I believe you. But ultimately, if you can read that statement in a couple of ways. If you're reading the statement like, we're going to do Ghost of Tsushima 2, and we're going to take a bunch of the elements from the game and we're going to make a VR version of it. It's going to be kind of a version of it. Same story, same, lower res versions of the models and shit. But it's going to, but it's going to be built from the ground up for VR. Then I'm like, go fuck yourself. I'll give it a shot. But I don't care. Because at that point, it's a gimmick. Because there's nothing VR brings to the moment-to-moment gameplay that is drastic enough to merit jumping through the hoops to deal with the headaches of VR that you can't get in a first-person shooter. I know there's some things, but those things don't really affect the gameplay to me in any meaningful way. But if you're just playing a great game that's more immersive because of the sense of place, because of the PSVR2, that happens to be a great game like a new Last of Us, Uncharted, God of War, whatever, fuck. I'm there in a goddamn heartbeat. Eternal, exactly. Eternal says Resident Evil 7 VR was one of the best games for it. It was also played fine without, right? That's exactly right. It was a great game first. So Griff, here's the test I think you can run, Griff. Griff Game says, Astrobot and Moss, which I haven't played much of Moss, but I did play Astrobot, loved it, are brilliant VR games that are built and crafted for VR. Yeah. But if you took the VR out of Astrobot, it would be a generic platformer for the most part. If you took the VR out of Resident Evil 7, it would be brilliant. It would remain a brilliant horror first-person survival game. That's the only that it's got to be that. And I think this decision, at least if I'm reading it right, this decision allows Sony to do what they do so well, and they're putting the creative ahead of the tech in that sense. So Darth Buzzer says Lone Echo and the Under presents an arguably entire new genres. All gameplay systems are unique to VR. I understand. I'm not suggesting that there haven't been new mechanics that have come online because you're playing it in VR. Even the fact that when you do shooters and you have to physically duck your body to get behind cover, I understand it's different. But I'm saying that for me, and I'm only speaking for me personally, those differences have never been enough to make the pain in the ass worth getting into VR, right? I mean, I'm playing Project Wingman right now. I don't want to re-download my Oculus software for my PC and get the new drivers. I know the VR would be great, but I'm like, it's not so great that it's worth the pain in the ass. That's all I'm saying. Joe says if they added VR to Sackboy, it would be a better experience. Yeah. I mean, if you've played Lucky's Tale in VR, playing Super Lucky's Tale in VR on the Oculus Rift S is staggering. I mean, it's the same game, but it feels like you're fucking living there. And yeah, exactly. Everybody's saying Resident Evil 7 is a good example. That has to have been what drove them. It's like all these fucking games we're trying to make in VR, and the one everybody for the most part cites as the masterclass, which I hate to use that term, it's overused, but you know what I'm saying? That's the one everybody cites. It's like, why are we not following that Yellow Brick Road? So, hello, Laura Luna. Laura Luna's got a book coming out, you guys. What, in a year? A little less than a year? All about God of War. Think about that. Think about that. She called me and she said, Jaffe, will you do the intro for this book? And I said, it depends, Laura. Press one of these buttons. And she pressed this button. She says to me, will you do the intro? And I said, I'm lazy. I don't want to write anything. And she says, I'll call you and we can talk it out. So I'm doing the intro. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. That's Laura Luna's new book coming out very, very soon. All right, let's move on from VR. Obviously, the calls are open. If you guys want to keep talking VR, we can. But in the meantime, I want to talk to you guys about, we're going to stay in VR a little bit. We're going to stay in VR a little bit. Hang on. PPs, these are buttons. If you weren't here at the beginning of the stream, these are buttons for my dog. We're teaching my dog how to speak. So when he hits this one, it means he wants love. When he hits this one, it means he's got to go pee-pee. We got one that says treats, okay? So shut up. All right. Listen. Oh my God, I'm getting hyper. It's just, because I took my Ritalin about 30 minutes ago and it's kicking in. Okay. Here we go. I want to talk about VR a little bit more. So, a couple of things. The news that you guys saw just a month ago, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. It still may be nothing, but it certainly does bring a little bit more possible insight. Sony renews PlayStation Home trademark for the third time this year. I was never a big fan of Home. I remember being at GDC and Phil Harrison stood on stage and pitched it, and I was like, this sounds amazing. But ultimately, it was boring and it was stupid. And for me, a lot of people liked it, but whatever. But now with VR, and hopefully they will do more things in it, I think it's pretty fucking cool. And everybody's talking about the metaverse, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you this. So I'm watching the Ariana Grande concert. Now, I downloaded Fortnite again. I deleted it. I haven't played it in ages. But I said, let me at least watch it because it sounds interesting. And I do like Ariana Grande, whatever the fuck her name was. And as I'm watching it, what I didn't know, because I didn't see the Travis Scott thing or anything. I didn't really know what these were like. And what was so weird is it felt like Ready Player One. Because first off, the concert itself, whether you like Ariana Grande or not, I like that it was interactive. So yeah, there were some places where it was just, and I'll show you in a second on your screen if you're watching, there was like a giant Ariana Grande standing on steps and you could just dance or watch or whatever. I hate that she wasn't singing live. It's like, do it right. But this still probably represents the high watermark of this kind of virtual event. And these things are only going to get bigger and bigger and better. But anyway, I like that there was a lot of interactive elements in it. So here she is singing, but you can follow her around in your bubbles. There was kind of like a snowboarding on, looks like fucking neon Splatoon colored roads that you could do. Oh, here you can ride on a fucking unicorn flying around while she's swinging on a swing up there. You landed on this one planet and it was just like the whole planet was bouncing and you can twirl and spin and everything. But what was really cool is it really felt Ready Player One because it was the first time I'm in Fortnite. And again, I don't play this game that much, but I'm in Fortnite. The person I'm watching is using the Ariana Grande skin, which they just released, which looks like a Fortnite version of Grande. And Master Chief is there. And it might have been Thor or Hulk. One of the Avengers was there. And they were just all wandering around and it was like, oh my God, we are getting closer every day to Ready Player One, because here we are watching a concert with people from all over the world. And it's not just like the Fortnite characters. It's all of these fucking crazy pop culture characters. How they get away with it, I don't know. It's like Funko Pop. And on top of it, imagining that in VR would be amazing, right? So I between the PSVR2 news and there you are, she's going up the steps and you can still jump and platform and all this shit while you're staying with her and listening to the concert. It's really fucking cool. But while, watching the PSVR2 news and specifically how they're going to do games and watching all this metaverse stuff start to come to life has me excited again for VR in a way I haven't been since the Quest. And I loved the Quest and I got bored of it. But this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool. I mean, if you go into VR chat, you can be any character you want as well. It's not like Fortnite's the only one doing this. But Fortnite is the only one doing this, I think, at the quality of skins. You go into VR chat and anybody can make them, right? So they some of them look shitty and some of them look really good.
We've got to have money. Money talk.
We got ourselves a super chat, boys. Coming down the line, we got some ducats coming in from Magnum Visuals. Thank you, sir. He says, Chaffee, you think there's a connection between Sony's sense of smell patent and VR2? I can see two hoses going into your nostrils. I was not aware there was a sense of smell VR patent from Sony. I will tell you that, obviously, I mean, that's the first place my mind went when I was thinking about if PSVR2 is able to actually have amazing games, which it sounds like with these plans, they very well may. The next thing you really need is smell. I would trade 4K for smell in a heartbeat. I can't imagine that is going to work. But if it did, oh yeah, man. Smells trigger thoughts and emotions. So yeah, absolutely. Lut says, I don't think smell is that important. Most of my life is not spent smelling things. I think eye tracking is more important to making VR intuitive. Yes, all of your life is spent smelling things. You're not conscious of it necessarily. It's less about the intuitive part, although yes, that's absolutely important. And it's more about the fact that if you, like I'm going through, for example, this burnt forest in Ghost Tsushima right now. And yeah, it would be nice if it looked even better, although it looks great as is. But if I could smell those embers and smell the burnt wood, come on, man. Or if I'm going into like a morgue in a survival horror game and it smells not like dead bodies, but it kind of smells rank, come on, man. That's insane. That's insane. Or when you heal up, it smells like fucking food that you like. Or when you are around like a pretty girl, it smells like, perfume or something. Come on, man. It's good stuff. Fuzzy says it's not too crazy to think they could strap a PC-controlled mini atomizer to the side of your head that uses refillable pods. Creating a multi-layered palette of smells is the trick. I don't think, when it comes to smell-o-vision, I don't think it's a problem to solve it. I mean, it was solved in movie theaters back in the day. The problem is it's just another fucking thing you gotta have. You gotta, I'm buying Resident Evil. Here's the 8 packs I need for the smell-o-vision. And you didn't load them right, it's just that it's got to be seamless, man. It's got to be fucking seamless.
Look, I know this isn't going to make any sense. I'm already lived through this day.
Let's talk about RETURNAL, and I think most people now, when they look at the figures that came out for RETURNAL, 560,000 sold so far. Most people say, well, okay, this is a niche title. It's not going to do what I think a lot of people, including me, hoped it would do, but I never thought it would do bang up business because it's too fucking niche. But it's a goddamn brilliant video game. Game of the Year contender easily. And so they come out with this survey, and I wished I would have gotten it because no one has yet gone online and put the whole survey online. But in essence, if you read this thread on NeoGAF, where a number of people who've gotten the RETURNAL survey, Sony is curious, it sounds like, about, did you know it was a rogue-like game? Do you know what a roguelike game is? Did you care that the main character was a woman? I don't know if they asked about her age, but these are all questions that really seem to be, again, I haven't seen it yet. I'm just going off what these guys are talking about in the thread. But these questions really seemed, here's one, filled it in earlier, says Mr. S. It goes deep. Lots of questions on if you like Celine, the main character, and if she was an appealing character or not. This guy, Manabite, who posted it, the OP, says, I like the question. It is important to me that Celine is a woman. Like, is it or is it not, right? So, I mean, I would absolutely love to see more of these questions, but my assumption is that they're looking at it and going, this is a game that was highly rated, will probably win tons of awards in a couple of months. Why didn't it do well? Now, I think anybody can tell you why it didn't do well. Obviously, the $70 price point is part of it, but I don't think that's the biggest part of it, because niche gamers show up for what they like, and $70 isn't too much of a jump from $60. That if somebody made a game just for them, they'd pay it. To me, it was just too fucking hard for your average, game player, and that really ended up fucking them. So I don't know what they're gonna do with this data. I don't know if they're actually considering a sequel. I can't fathom they're considering a sequel, but I mean, it's brilliant. One of my favorite games. I loved it, but I mean, they dropped the ball on this fucking thing, man. When it comes to how to sell it and get it out to the world. And I did a video recently. That's Sony. That's not the game. The game was brilliant. A couple of tweaks I would have made to the game, but the game was brilliant. I will say the main character, Mrs. Bacon, was very boring. It was very forgettable. Yeah, I mean, she wasn't great, but that's kind of okay, right? I mean, in a game like this, it doesn't, there's something about this game, and I haven't finished it, so I don't know where it's going yet, but there's something about her just being very middle of the road. Like, if she had been a big personality and had become like a mascot for Sony, I don't think the game would have worked as well. Like, there's something about the subtlety of Returnal that feels more, I don't mean mature, like, oh, it's an art form. I mean, it feels more like a matured way of telling a story that isn't so rock'em sock'em, like, we need a hero, and I liked that. I agree with Joe. Jojo D says, I didn't buy it because I heard it was hard. I did. I bought it and I loved it. But yeah, it's really fucking hard. It requires a huge investment of time per play session, unless you just want to leave your game in stasis. Not do anything else with your PlayStation. Speaking of surveys, I got a survey for Back4Blood. Now, Back4Blood I played. I'll play a little bit more this week. Oh shit. I'm so sorry. I'll tell you all about Back4Blood and what I thought of it in just a second. But I goodness gracious, I almost forgot to do this. Here, you gotta listen to this fucking thing. This is amazing. Come on, man. Who is always looking out for you? Who is always keeping track of your life, watching from on high to make sure you're having the best time in your adventure on Earth? It's me, it's your Papa Jeffy. I want to tell you about something I just found out about. I want to tell you about a new podcast that's out there. It's called The LEETIST. The LEETIST, baby. It is a new podcast where three friends, and then they bring on a rotating guest. Maybe they'll bring me on sometime. I'd do this. This sounds like a great show. Listen to this. It's three pals and a rotating guest. They play games about games, right? The LEETIST Podcast, they put their own spin on trivia, classic game shows, board games, video games, and debate battles on a variety of video game topics. Let me say that again so you understand what they're doing. They literally have a podcast where you listen in and they are playing games about video games, okay? The guys at the LEETIST are coming up with new games all the time, and they want your help with game ideas too. Now, you can drop these fellas a line on Twitter. Here's how you get there. You go to @The LEETIST. Let me spell it for you. The little symbol, you know what I'm talking about. It's and then The LEETIST. LEETIST. The LEETIST. And you can send them your original game ideas, trivia questions, debate topics for a chance to hear your creations on the show. And you goddamn right, that's going to come with an epic shout out, of course, when you listen to the podcast where they use your idea and make you famous. Now listen, check the show's Twitter feed now to find the Google form. This is a great form, by the way, for their upcoming video game Family Feud. They have these great questions. It's a really cool survey that you can fill out about things like, what's the best dungeon in the Legend of Zelda series? What's the toughest monster to kill in the Resident Evil franchise? And then they're going to take those answers and use them for the surveys in the video game Family Feud episode coming up very soon. The latest podcast, y'all so-and-sos, that's games about games. And you can find it now on all major podcast platforms. Now, Back4Blood I played. I'll play a little bit more this week with some of the members of the chat or the Discord. I will tell you that Back4Blood was fine. I think I will have more fun playing it with people I know than just playing with randoms. I thought it was kind of overwhelming. There's a lot of systems that they didn't bother to explain. Obviously, it's a beta. It's not early, but it's early-ish. And I didn't think the moment-to-moment gameplay was anything that special. It was good, but it wasn't like, oh my fucking God, this is the next leap for, this blows away Killing Floor 2 or something. It was like, oh, it's one of those things. It's kind of cool. It may be better, but they sent the survey out. I did a tweet about this. I was just fascinated by this because every single game we've ever made, we have done surveys. When the game came out, when the game was in development, at focus test, because that is your, making a game and making creative decisions about a game is like walking through a cloud bank, or it's like Silent Hill 2 on the PS2. You can't see more than 5-6 feet ahead of you. Okay. And you as the director, where you're going, like where you want to end up, but you don't really necessarily always know how to get there. And what's great about the surveys and stuff is that you are giving it to people who don't know the game, don't care about the game, don't care about the outcome. And if it's given in a way that it doesn't muddy the water, in our last Drawn to Death focus test, Tony muddied the water, and that's the focus test company's fault. That wasn't our fault. They did a terrible focus test. But anyway, now I'll talk about that if you want to. But anyway, if you don't muddy the water and you get good data, it can really save your ass and let you know what people are thinking. But this survey I got for Back to Blood was so useless. Because at least if I was on the development team, because it was asking me like to rate things on a scale of like 1 to 10, 10 being best, 1 being shit, but there were no follow-ups, right? And so, for example, there's a card system in Back 4Blood, and I love collectible card games, and I was like, this is cool. And it's like you can pick up, at the beginning you can choose cards. I guess you also unlock cards or something later. I don't think you buy them. You might, I don't know. And they're like, oh, here's a health thing, or here's a buff for your stamina, or here's a buff for reload faster, whatever. And I'm like, okay, it has me pick these cards at the very beginning before I even jump into a match. And I'm like, okay, I think I know what these things are. Let me just play. Nowhere in the game does it explain anything else. I don't know if those cards are passive buffs. I don't know if there are ways I can use them, right? The same thing with there's all this gear, which I love. I love that there's like tripwire and there's audio traps or audio distractors, and there's all kinds of things that are not just guns. But I don't know really what I'm supposed to do with them, and I don't really understand the upgrade system. So it was really interesting to me that the survey they send out on their first open beta is, please rate the card system. And I'm like, if I'm a designer and I get it back, I rated it a 2. Or it was 1 out of 5, and I rated it 2. What would they take of that data? If a bunch of people gave it a 2, they're liable to walk away and say, nobody likes the card system, get it out of here. Let's not ship with it. It's easy to turn off. We told you it wasn't going to work, Jaffe designer. That's why we put it in there as a thing that we could easily extract. Whatever. We'll launch it after it comes out. It'll be DLC. But honestly, I love the card system. I'd love it to work. I love the idea of it, but I don't know what the fuck the idea of it is. You're putting a beta out there, and I get that you don't have all your explained yet. That's fine. But make a video. Just have a wall of text, something. Otherwise, don't ask me to rate it because you're going to get data that's fucked up. Eternal says, in the game, the card system is mundane. Basic modifiers most games would have as an attachment. Okay, so it's not like, oh shit, I'm in the middle of a bad time. I'm going to play this card. And suddenly we get a buff for the next 40 seconds or something. It's not a big game changer. That sucks. I don't understand, Mr. Pancakes. What are you saying? Mr. Pancake says they want feedback, not a fix this essay. Are you talking to me? And this is my essay? You don't fucking tell me what they want if you're talking to me, bitch. I worked in video games for 23 years. Don't tell me what they want. I know what they want. They want help. They want somebody to explain to you how you're enjoying their game. Pancake's going to be like, I wasn't talking to you, Jaffe. That happens all the time. But they want to know what's working and what's not working. You get too close to a fucking game. So whenever I would have somebody write a wall of text in a focus test or a survey, it was like Christmas morning. I'm like, oh, thank God. Somebody's really able to articulate what the problem is. And if you don't think that's important, that's fine, but you've never made a goddamn video game then, because getting data from people who have not played your game is crucial. Scott says, yeah, he was talking to me. He probably was, but I can edit that out and make it sound like he was talking to me, and it's a good, what I just said was good anyway. It's going in the edit. Sorry, Mr. Pancakes. It's going in the edit, baby. I don't want to spend too much time with Activision. I'm kind of getting, I have the privilege that I can get bored of Activision stories, only because I haven't been sexually harassed, and I don't have people I'm sure I have people I love in the industry who've been harassed, but in other words, I don't want to beat a dead horse. We know how shitty these situations are, but there is some news worth bringing to your attention if you didn't pick up on this, and worth discussing just very, very briefly. This is interesting because now we're starting to see a couple things happen this last week where Activision, it's not just PR, they're starting to get hit at a money level, which is the only language that they really understand anyway. Coke and State Farm are pulling back from the Overwatch League. Coke says it will revisit its league sponsorship, while State Farm has pulled its ads from weekend competition. Now, this is not a big loss. I don't know how much money they spend, but it's not like we're talking billions of dollars. But it's, you've got two massive companies, one of the biggest companies in the world, which is Coke, which is saying, publicly we're making it clear we need to step back and reassess this, okay? Just like I think Disney needs to step back and reassess giving Ubisoft their Star Wars license, but that's a different story. So we'll see what happens with this. But this was the first thing. And then there's another lawsuit. Shareholders are suing Activision Blizzard for withholding harassment information. They made false and misleading statements which led to artificially inflated stock. Now, this is a big one. This one, we already know what's happening with the California lawsuit, but that's not a class action suit. This is a lot more money possibly, I think, to be made in this. So, I don't know where this is going to go because of this. Activision Blizzard stock fell over 6% on the 27th, the day after the lawsuit's existence was revealed. Since then, the stock has fallen an additional 5% based on Tuesday's closing price. This was I don't know where it is right now. The last thing on Activision, this is interesting. Morhaime, who is one of the three founders of Blizzard, left in 2018, started a new company. The report comes out this week. Mike Morhaime, other Blizzard executives as well, were informed of rampant misconduct. So apparently, while they were there, an assistant of Blizzard co-founder and former CEO Morhaime claimed to have informed him, as well as other senior leadership, about rampant misconduct that went on within the company. The report from Bloomberg also presents a shift in the company culture as it gained more popularity to the point where its developers began being seen as rock stars. These developers were untouchable. This was a quote. Not only could they tell you how to do your job, but they had so much power they could do whatever they wanted in line of sight with their other powerful friends, former employee Christina McConan told the site. Another employee says, in my experience, you just stopped going to HR. They were almost like a gang that would ruin your career if you reported certain individuals. So, again, this is talk. This is just people saying what they felt. I mean, if you've worked in corporate life for more than a month, you know that just because somebody says something shitty occurred at a company doesn't mean it did. It doesn't mean it didn't. I believe what I've read about Activision and Blizzard. It makes sense to me that it's true. Any company that I've worked at and that I've even owned, there's always people at the company that feel they know better. And when they're not the ones that get to make the decisions, they always are going to lunch and grousing about the people in charge of creative or budget or whatever. So I'm always skeptical when people are like, I used to work there and it was shitty. But in this case, though, I think there's smoke and there's fire. Brian East is right. The state of California has been investigating Blizzard for over 2 years. They had to have known. I think they just drank their own Kool-Aid thinking they were too big to fail. I won't give you details, Brian East, but I will tell you at a related level, there was a person I spoke to at a very big video game company very recently, like a couple of days ago. And they were saying to me, Jaffe, this company has changed so much. And I said, well, what do you mean it's changed so much? And they said, it's not the same kind, inclusive, welcoming, nurturing place it was. And a lot of that is exactly what they're saying here. Not in terms of this company hasn't had any reported harassment. But as companies, I've seen this. I saw this at PlayStation when PS2 ruled the roost and we moved into PS3. People struggle with how to handle success. When you get success, it's not just that people's egos get inflated, but even worse, people then are attracted to the company. It's like in a relationship. If you're out in the world and you're confident, people come to you to be in a relationship. You don't have to go on dating sites. They'll come to you for the most part. If you're a company and you're making a bunch of fucking money and you're doing well, people come to you. And those people are hungry and ambitious and driven, and they bring all that shit into a company that one of the main reasons it became a company that was successful was because the management was good and alert and healthy and nurturing and all that good stuff. And suddenly you get all these fucking bad actors, as they say, into the fucking recipe, and it starts fucking this shit up. It starts fucking this shit up, man.
Forgive me, Majesty. I'm a vulgar man, but I assure you, my music is not.
You guys know Gone Home, one of my favorite games of all time, thought it was brilliant. The co-founder, Steve Gaynor, has stepped down following complaints from employees. Now, none of the complaints are about sexual harassment or anything like that, but they are targeting, this is apparently targeted women, in that he was toxic, he was bullying, he mocked their ideas. Basically, this all got triggered because a bunch of employees have been leaving every month. And I think they've lost like 10 to 15 employees, and I think they're all women so far. And so apparently the guy, according to the reporting, has a problem with women, and it didn't come off in sexual attacking or sexual harassment. It came off in just being a dick, to the point that he is now a writer on the title. He's no longer running the creative lead. And I guess Annapurna, who's the publisher, has stepped in to run interference between him and the team. So he's still engaged for whatever reason, legally, or they think he brings value. I don't fucking know. But they're like, yeah, you can't come into work or be on the Zoom calls. You want to talk to us through Annapurna. So it's very fascinating. It just, people are assholes, man. But then again, you got to be careful. Just because somebody accuses doesn't mean it's what happened. But in this case, man, it does seem that, fuck, every day. Is it that people are just more comfortable reporting it? Is it that it's more prevalent than it ever was? I don't fucking know. But in the case of Gone Home, there may be a point. There may be a point where you look at it and say, we can get rid of all these people. Not the people who are sexually harassing, not the people who are physically abusive, not the people that are really problematic overtly. But there may be a point that we do become too sensitive, and the very nature of why people go into creative work is in a lot of ways to fill a hole they have in their life. It's like being an actor. If you ever listen to actors that just come clean about shit, listen to Jim Carrey talk about celebrity, listen to him talk about fame. He's like, dude, I did all this because I felt empty, because I was depressed, because I didn't feel that I was a full human. A healthy person who's raised in a healthy lifestyle is not going to chase fame. They're not going to chase clout. They're not going to chase money, right? Because those things, I mean, they might chase money, but they are broken. And they come to these creative arts because the arts do help, and the arts allow you to feel more whole. Sometimes it's a healthy way, and sometimes, like, if you rely on adulation, it's not. And so there is a point where you have to start to wonder, is it possible to have a work environment that's incredibly healthy and kind and nurturing, and everybody, for the most part, within reason, just feels great about coming to work? And can you still do amazing work? Can you still do envelope pushing work? Or does one thing negate the other? I don't know. Henry says we all want to be loved and validated. Sure, but a lot of people are loved and validated. Somebody says, well, Jaffe, what was your hole? My hole was insecurity. My hole was I was raised by loving parents that were a little crazy, and we were all, not always, but after I turned about 10, we were very money insecure. We used to have a lot of money growing up, and then my dad's business and that industry in Alabama really got shaken to its core, which was the steel business, and it was just, I never was concerned about being homeless, but I would come home and the power would be turned off. I would come home and mom and dad would be arguing horribly about money. And there was this insecurity about being able to take care of myself and make sure that I never felt that way again. So that was the engine that drove a lot of my ambition. Absolutely it was. And I think you could, if people are honest with you, most people will tell you that are in the creative arts what they're really going after. Zaf says that's why some of the best artists never sign to a company, because they don't want corporate interest to compromise their work. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly true. I mean, you work for yourself, you do whatever the fuck you want. Curtis says, I chase nothing but health in this life. Yeah, but again, that's you're lucky then, because what that means, if that's true, is either you've worked through your shit with therapy or whatever, or you were just raised in a way where you don't have those insecurities, and that's wonderful. Jimmy Gilchrist says, when I come to work, I'm not there to make friends. I'm there to get things done. Can't handle the fire, leave and get out of the way. Yeah, Jimmy Gilchrist, I understand, but there is a balance, right? There's a balance between, if you go to work, it depends what the fire is. If the fire is we have to work really hard, or if the fire is you have a boss or you have a colleague that is, in your mind, unnecessarily harsh when they critique your work, yeah, you're right. It's like, you know what? Deal with it. Fucking fight. You want a seat at the creative table, fucking fight. I agree with that. But at the same time, there's a difference between that and you go to work and you are being sexually harassed or you are being physically accosted. That's very, very different. Brett Williams of the Connecticut Williams says, the tortured artist narrative isn't just a trope. An artist, as an artist for a living, I can tell you everyone I know in my field comes from a broken past full of trauma. Right. I don't think you have to necessarily be tortured. And I think that it can be over-romanticized to the point that it's not a valid painting of the process of working in the creative entertainment field. But I do agree with you that I don't know many people. Let's put it this way. I used to be obsessed with creativity and being a creative guy and telling my stories and all. Obsessed with it. Like, I would have fought you like King Kong versus Godzilla if you tried to get in my way. And I made God of War, made some money, felt secure enough for the first time in my life. The worst thing Sony ever did, if they was pay me some money, a good bonus. But I felt more secure. I started going to therapy more, started taking care of my health mentally more anyway. Eventually, I was just like, I don't really need to do this anymore. People are like, when are you going to do more design, Jaffe? I'm like, I'm not driven to do it anymore. I don't need to plant a flag anymore and say, this is my vision. I'm like, I'm doing this stream. This is my vision, but I don't need that validation anymore. And I used to need it. And it's a relief not to need it anymore. Did anyone at Sony ever curse you out or attack you? No. I was at times, very abrasive. I was never cruel. Well, I was cruel, but I wasn't cruel, like abusive. But I was cruel, like, no, I was just very, what's the word? I was very not short-tempered at all. It wasn't that. I was very myopic. And I was like, look, all I care about is the player. And I am a slave to the player. You are a slave to the player. And so it was more like if I saw something that didn't work, I didn't care. It wasn't that I didn't care if your feelings got hurt. It was that I just assumed that we were all in the same boat of, you can tell me my stuff is shit. You want to hear when your stuff is shit. In my opinion, it was always subjective, of course, because we're aiming for a higher target. We have to make the best game ever made. And some people were just like, man, I worked really hard on this all weekend long, and you came in and you saw it once, yeah, terse, and you said it was shit. And Shannon would always tell me, it's like, dude. And I'm like, dude, I can't worry about that. All I think of is the player. And that was helpful. That allowed the game to be better. You don't get sales on your game because the team loves you. You get sales on your game because you and the team work together and you're usually focused on the end result customer. And I've had failures where I've forgotten that, and I've never had a failure when I've remembered that, okay? So that was how bad it was. And now that I'm older, I would have handled it differently. I would still be as protective of the player's experience, but I'm wiser and older now that I could be like, I know what I have to get across to this person, but I'm gonna be, what should have been explained to me was, yes, Jaffe, you can tell that artist. And I told an artist this once. I told an artist, he had done this interior of a temple or some such thing. And I told him, I said, it looks like a Mexican restaurant. And I didn't mean that disrespectfully. I was talking about going to places like El Cholo in LA that have all the stucco walls and the arches and all this stuff and the some of the wood beams. And that's what I was talking about. But he really got offended by that because he's like, this is fucking based on research. And you're saying it looks like some stuff like Taco Bell. I'm like, no, that's not what I meant. But now I would go, that artist would be more productive for the gamer if Shannon hadn't had to diffuse that situation, right? And so even though, so now I would look at it as a means to an end. It's like, you need to communicate this isn't working, and you don't want to spend too much time on it because you can make a million decisions a day, or, you know, not really, but you know what I'm saying, tons of decisions a day. So get to it quick. But if you do it in a nicer way, in a more self-aware way of how you're coming across, you're going to get more out of that artist. That's what I should have but I didn't know that. I want to just talk about something briefly because I talk about this a lot when it comes to video games. And I only bring it up because I'm just, even though I know it and I'm not surprised by it, I'm always sucker punched by it. Okay. So first, let me ask you, does anybody know, I'm just going to tell you, but you know how much Sony spent to get Insomniac games? You know how much they paid? These guys paid, Sony paid $200 and give or take $30 million to acquire Insomniac, which is a fucking steal. It's a fucking goddamn steal. $230 million to acquire Insomniac. The reason I bring this up, though, is Zynga, the once Facebook company and now kind of just social publisher, you know, Facebook and a lot on cell phones, they literally just bought a company that makes a game called Golf Rival, which is a cell phone game. And it's a big hit, I guess, in the cell phone game world. Do you know how much they paid for a little a cell phone developer? I mean, this is what I keep telling you guys. You can get all your Game of the Year awards, and you can get all your kudos from the press, and you can get all your love from, whoever, and you can shove it up your ass. That's the goddamn truth. Insomniac, one of the best developers on the planet, makes some of the best games in the art form on the planet, got bought for $230 million. This company that made its bones on one game for the most part, Golf Rival. Let me show you what it looks like first. I've never even seen it. I'm not saying it's not a success. I'm not saying it was a bad purchase. I'm saying that this is kind of what we're talking about. This is the difference when all you people act like I'm just a moron for saying Sony's in trouble because they're spending too much money to make their fucking games. This is Golf Rival. Golf Rival. There you go. I'll make it big for you. They spent a little over $500 million to acquire this company that makes this game. $525 million. I didn't say, Bacon, you should be impressed by the garbage they put out. Bacon says, oh, so since these companies are making money, we should be impressed by the garbage? No. I'm not saying you should be impressed by it, although I'm sure it's a fine game. I haven't played it. I'm not knocking the game. It looks like something could be fun. I'm just saying that it's important, I think, when you're having a lot of the discussions like we have on the stream about the business of games and what sells and what get greenlit and all that stuff, it's important to keep in mind it's happening in this environment where a game that looks like you could probably make it, at least a minimal viable product of this and start seeing profitability, you can make it for probably under $1 million, is building value in a company enough that they're worth $500 million. And then a company that makes brilliance like Spider-Man, Miles Morales, fucking Ratchet and Clank, one of the best looking games ever made. And they sold after decades of proving their worth for $230 million. I know Zynga's not a small company. I didn't say they were. I'm talking about the company they bought. Zynga tried to buy Eat, Sleep, Play. We almost sold to Eat, Sleep, Play. We almost sold to Zynga, and then they went public, and they said, look, we're going to go public in a month. I guess part of going public is you have to kind of stop all new acquisitions and all this stuff. So they said, once we're public, we'll pick up negotiations again. And they went public and they did great for like a week, and then their stock collapsed and they kind of lost interest in buying anything else. They said, well, let's wait and see how we do. So I'm glad I didn't. I would have had a miserable couple of years there. Right, Beat says it's a game that looks like it would die in the console market. Sure. Again, Carlo says, looks like a quick waste of time when you're waiting for your friend to come over. Yep. It might be a great game. I'm not complaining about the game. I'm just saying It's an important thing to mention to remind you from time to time, because a lot of times I'll talk about how core gamers, which are myself and you guys and whatnot, feel and make assumptions about the business with this assumption that we are the vanguard. We are the ones guiding the ship in our taste, and we're tastemakers, and we are looked at by the industry as the core people who need to be pleased. And I bring this up only to once again point out, here's a great example of how marginalized the core audience that did used to be the most influential, meaningful audience that had to be served by these game developers have now been sort of marginalized and pushed away in favor of very different types of game players that dwarf us in number. Okay, I want to get to this tweet. Cory Barlog of God of War. Did I say someone bought Zynga? No, I'm sorry. Zynga bought the company that makes Golf Rivals, is what I meant. I apologize if I spoke incorrectly. I want to talk briefly about this tweet. So Cory Barlog sends out a tweet the other day, and this is what he says. He says, the terrible and insufferable things about creating are the true challenge of the job that you endure, not the fun, creative problems you always imagine yourself tackling on the regular when daydreaming about how great the job would be. It's still fun, but man, the fantasy was better. That's Cory. Let me read it one more time. The terrible and insufferable things about creating, meaning games, but creating in general, are the true challenge of the job that you endure. It's not the fun, creative problems you always imagine yourself tackling on the regular when daydreaming about how great the job will be. It's still fun, but man, the fantasy was better. Okay. So there's a guy named Tija, I don't know how to say his name, but he in the chat, and I tweeted out, it's brilliant insight. I retweeted Cory's tweet. I said, this is brilliant insight, which is why I always tell people not yet in the business to make their own games first and make sure they enjoy the process. I stopped enjoying it, so I stopped doing it. Best decision ever. So this guy, Tija, whatever, hits me up on Twitter. I remembered your videos the first time I saw Cory tweet. Would you dissect his tweet on one of your videos this week? I'm confused about what he's saying. Is the creating part not fun, or that the other fluff around creation makes the creating part not as fun? And I said, well, I'll tell you. I'll do it on the stream. So, look, I'll have to ask Cory. I haven't talked to Cory in a while, probably because PR has said don't talk to him. But regardless, my read on Cory's tweet is what he's basically saying is there is when you daydream about being a game director or a movie director or a writer, there is kind of the, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. There is the writer's life, the artist's life, right? It gets romanticized. You see it in behind. And this, look, man, I took it down because I thought it just wasn't my place to say it. But it's one of the reasons I didn't like Raising Kratos, that documentary. I thought it was incredibly well made, but I thought it was not raw enough an expression of the actual behind-the-scenes process of creating. And I think that's damaging, right? So there's a lot of people that think because they've been sold by PR these images of what it means to do the work, when it's not even about what the work is. It's about selling you on the team and the game and the, isn't this fun? Aren't we a family? All this stuff. And it's all it doesn't mean none of that's true, but when you start adding music to shit and you start doing things with editing and you start sweetening up real life to make it look better than it really is, it's not that far from being an Instagram model and kind of posting a hyper version of reality in order to sell something beyond just the truth of the documentary, right? So I think what he's talking about is he's saying, look, I don't think he's saying there are no fun parts of the job, but he's saying there are the fun parts of the job that you always imagined, and that's real. But the hard part of the job is the stuff that you have to endure when you're creating, which is the doubt, which is the not having the right ideas, which is feeling like you're not going to live up to expectations, which is knowing you have to ship or you have to lock things down and it's not good enough yet, but the train is moving. I can't speak specifically to what he's talking about, A, because I wouldn't, and B, because I don't know. But if he's like, oh, no, I'm talking about this character, I couldn't tell you that. But I'm just saying that it very much is, for me, the creative process was never fun. The fun part was seeing people react to it, or the fun part was having the initial idea. But between having the initial idea and seeing people react to it was horrible. It was stressful. It was hard. It was difficult. It's not for me anymore. I work really hard doing the stream and doing videos and stuff, but I genuinely enjoy 95% of it. Like, I love the work, and that's different for me. So I can't speak specifically if Cory's talking about what percentage he's dealing with. It's like 80% I love, but man, that 20%, or if he's saying no, most of it's really fucking hard. I don't know what he's saying. Man, Raising Kratos was awesome, says Beats. It was a great it was a great movie. It was an absolutely disingenuous documentary. But it was an absolute it was an absolute genuinely entertaining piece of work though. But that piece of work was not there to give you genuineness. That's not what it was. The Amico is pushed again. They said, oh, it's not coming. It should be out by the end of the year now. I don't know when it was supposed to be out. You know, I don't know, man. Look, here's what I think about the Amico. And I keep meaning to make a video about this. I'm not an Amico hater at all. I absolutely believe in what Tommy's trying to do. And for a long time, though, and I've played it, and I've been down to the offices, as I've said, for a long time, I was like, yeah, but the thing is, Tommy, I believe in your vision, but there's a lot of other companies that are already there. Switch is already there, making family games and all this. But it wasn't until my kids had a sleepover recently, and they all wanted to play Towerfall. And I was like, oh, this is a pain in the ass. I got to find more controllers. I had to buy another controller because the one we had was broken. They weren't all charged up. It's just all these little hoops. The Amico is just, it works. And you can use your cell phone as a controller, and it works really great the way they're doing it. It's not what it sounds like. It's not like, I don't like touch controls. It's not that, and you'll see. So I'm starting to believe more in the vision of, like, it's not so much that other games don't offer family-friendly games. It's that so many of the decisions about the Amico are about one specific thing, which is bringing people together in front of a television with the easiest way to get there, right? So like Grave says, why would the Amico succeed when the market is dominated by parents giving their kids iPads? I don't know if it will succeed. I think it's overpriced, and I think the fact that they're continually delaying it potentially starts to speak about things that aren't good beyond just COVID being a reason, but I don't know if that's true. But now they're going on their, second delay? Why the Amico would succeed, I'll give you a great example, man, of it. He says, why would the Amico succeed when the market is dominated by parents giving their kids iPads? So when my ex comes over and we hang out with the kids, we'll have dinner, and then a lot of times we'll play like on Apple Arcade, and we'll try to play, one of the games we like the most is Song Pop, which is like name that tune and we're competing and stuff. It's a really great game. But the frequency of it just working, of everybody being able to link up to the same game, it must take us anywhere from, if we're lucky, 5 minutes to 15 minutes. And sometimes we just walk away and say, fuck it, let's do something else, because it's not, we can't, everything except the Amico so far has enough problems that the audience that he's going for, I do think there is an audience out there at the right price, which is not what it is right now, that is going to respond to the message. Even if the games aren't great, the games are not, the games are fun. Some of them are really fun, but yeah, they're cell phone games on a TV. No one's arguing anything, but they are trying to make them, very easy to play and all that. And in that they're unique, but I don't think Tommy would tell you they're trying to compete with, core gamers at all. But I do wonder about that. I wonder about this new delay with the Amico. I wonder what that's about. Beyond Bacon says he's saying it's because they don't have parts. The Amico, Tommy's claiming there's no parts for the system. That's why the system was delayed. But admit they're still working on the games. But the system was supposed to come out last year. Well, yeah, but so what? That just because the system's delayed, doesn't mean they're not continuing to work on games, new games, adding games, improving games. But you know, I'm not ready to throw the Amico under the bus just because it's delayed. I will say that it's not good optics, but that could just be a delay. It could be a delay, just like a lot of people are dealing with delays. Just like Sony can't get enough PS5s on the shelf because they don't have all the parts yet. Tallarico is hustling his investors. Amico might as well be vaporware, says Zaf. Well, I played Amico over a year ago. I assure you it's not vaporware. You know, whether or not it's going to be successful or not, I think is dependent on a number of things. And I think it's got an uphill battle to climb. But I do think there's something to it that is correct. Whether or not they've got the way to give that secret sauce to people, I think that's the big question in terms of price and various things like that. Oh, Heave Ho, right. Captain Picard says, you want to know a great, crazy, fun game to play with your kids? Play Heave Ho, right. But that's what I'm saying. If I wanted to play Heave Ho or anything like that, it's like, okay, sign in, put your controller into the PS4, PS5. Okay, now you have a guest pass account. Oh, wait, I signed in as that. Now all my games are locked. No, sign back out. Sign back out. Okay, let me sign in and launch the game so it's verified for me because I bought the game. Okay, now you sign in and don't sign in as the person who was here the other day because that's their account. I mean, it's a lot of these things that hardcore gamers just are like, you know, whatever. These are big deals for people that want to sit with their kids and just play a quick round of, you know, smashing up cars and shit. That's all I'm saying. Zaf says the Atari VCS has similar delays and a terrible launch. No one is talking about it now or cares. You're talking about the new Atari that just came out. Yeah, but there's no games for it, right? Amico is going to launch with games packed in. They've already done a press run of the games, man. Okay, I want to show you one more thing. I love this, and I despise this, and I don't know how to feel about this, okay? There's a company called Riff. They just raised about $12 million, and I want to show you what they do. There's a video that goes along with this. I want to show you what these fine folks at the company called Riff do. And this is kind of brilliant and kind of disturbing. If you're not watching your screen, I'll play it. If you're listening to the podcast, I'll edit this out and I'll just jump to when I explain it. But let me show you the video real quick.
Using proprietary image intelligence technology, Riff's placer product objects can be identified, placed, and replaced within moving frames. New intelligent images become programmable content where placement can be updated in real time across targeted audience demographics and platforms. Intelligent images can be changed at any time, so different audience segments can experience different product placement packages in the same narrative story. Future-proof new productions by always presenting the latest brand designs and eliminate accidental copyright infringement.
See what this is? This is pretty fucking amazing, actually. This is it's product placement, and what you're filming, I don't know what the actual object looks like. I assume it's some kind of, you know, got dots and shit over it, almost like the object that's the shape of a bottle. This is not product, this is individual targeted product placement. Okay? Think about it. And I don't have a problem with it, but it seems disturbing. What do you mean you're not impressed? What? No, let me explain this. Maybe I'm not explaining it to you very well. Let me explain this to you. If you're looking at your screen, it's a guy sitting, or you're not looking at your screen, there's a guy sitting on a couch, and sitting in front of the couch is a table that has Wheat Thins and a bottle of Pepsi on it, okay? That Pepsi bottle and that Wheat Thin bottle is not real. The Pepsi bottle in the Wheat Thins box is a real box, but they have dots on them that they're able to map the texture and art of the actual brand, right? So if, for example, in Alabama, they know that, and let's say this is for a sitcom, and they know in Alabama, the Coke company knows that, what do they have? I'm trying to think what Coke owns, that Sprite sells better than Diet Coke. Or your family, because you've opted in for Ralph's or the grocery store you shop at, your family buys Mountain Dew more than Pepsi. Pepsi's paid for the product, but they go, the family watching this show because they're on a smart TV and they've opted in for all the shit they didn't know they were opting in for in the terms of service when they got the grocery app that lets them get discounts on their groceries from the Kroger or whatever. That family that drinks Mountain Dew, that'll be a Mountain Dew bottle. Okay, but if you drink Mellow Yellow, well, it's different because it's a different company would have paid for it. But if you drink Coke or Pepsi, whatever makes Mountain Dew, that'll be that bottle. Okay, it's basically demographic and individual targeted based advertising, not the ads that they show, but the product placement. Yeah, that's a good point, Bacon Magma. He says, when there's a person playing Amico on a TV show, they're going to show a PS5 for you instead. Well, maybe the box. I think there's got to be a consistent shape. I think this is fascinating. I think this is cool. I think it's also incredibly, there's something disturbing about it. There's something that Kojima said that I want to talk about briefly. He tweeted this out, and I've always been a digital guy. And a lot of times the pushback on digital has been, well, I like to own my shit. I like to collect my shit. I don't care about that. I don't give a shit if if Netflix goes out of business tomorrow and I never get to watch season 3 of Stranger Things again. I'm down with that. I don't care. I love Stranger Things, right? I love Fear Street. But I'm okay. There's so much more to do. I don't covet this shit, right? I just enjoy it and I'm moving with my life. But Kojima tweeted out something about it where, and I don't know what triggered this thought, but Hideo Kojima was talking about digital, and he was saying one of the real dangers of digital, and I had never thought about this, is that it's not so much that you lose access to your shit. It's not that you lose access to your shit. That's something people are worried about. I'm not. I don't care. It's that as culture shifts and changes, they can change the shit that you love. And then I'm like, oh, right? So, for example, if you're watching Raiders Lost Ark, my favorite movie of all time, and in the movie where Indy's going around and he's shooting like, Arab people. And even there's a line like, well, no, we don't care about what these Arabs think. And he shoots the guy with the sword, the knight. You could be in a culture where suddenly it's like, oh, that's offensive. We're cutting that scene, right? I mean, you basically would have a bunch of busybody George Lucases behind the scenes continually changing the shit you love because they don't want to get canceled by whoever. It could be conservative, could be left-leaning. It always changes. Pendulum always swings on any given day of the week, right? I thought that was a really good point. I thought that was a really good fucking point. It still doesn't beat digital for me. I still like digital. But that is something I hadn't thought about before. I thought, right. Graves says Spielberg edited E.T. to remove the guns. That's right. And again, it was so known and it was so complained about, but it's that because it was so new. And I think he's since regretted it. He may have changed it back. But that said, though, I think we're going to get to a point where you don't even notice it. You could just be watching a movie you love from a long time ago, and there's just something that feels a little bit off, something that you can't even consciously put your finger on. It's like something just feels a little different. It doesn't hit the way it used to. And it's like, is that nostalgia, or is that because they digitally altered something? I'm sure there'll be plenty of websites that track all the changes. But yeah, it's going to be more insidious, which is obviously, that's the disturbing part of all this.
I'm really rich.
So a few minutes ago on the show, we got a super chat from CR3D. Here's what he was asking. Has design changed from at a cultural level? He says, I mean the culture of game design from when you begin to now, from when I began to now. Like, it seems everything's more bottom line than actual true passion vision. So, okay, in some ways, nothing is different, right? Because I think you have to be really careful to romanticize the good old days, in that it was still about making money, right? The difference was the expectation of how much they needed to make to be satisfied, because the audience was so much smaller and the cost was so much smaller. It looking back like everything was just driven by passion. In the same way that if you look back before the movie studios were owned by these giant corporations and it was just, you know, the Mayer brothers or the Warner brothers running the studios, or it was Thalberg running the creative of one of the studios, it's like, oh, they really loved movies. Well, sure, they loved movies, but they were still in it to make a shit ton of money. So it was different in that I could get a green light a lot easier, or it was different that marketing just needed to know they could sell what was on the box, right? It wasn't about making sure that we checked a number of boxes before we got a green light. It wasn't about making, you know, because the audience expectation was very different, and there was a more of a sense of, it was easier to know exactly what they wanted, and we could risk things that was outside of that because the cost wasn't as much. And in that, you could take more risks, but it wasn't because people were driven by passion. It was because the risks, if you took them, didn't really hurt that much, and you could make them up somewhere else easy, right? So that would be my answer to your question. So it's changed, but it's still, you would be wrong to assume it was some kind of altruistic thing back in the day. It was still driven by, hey, we got to make a lot of fucking money. Fellas, thank you so much. I know we had Robin here earlier. I know we had RPG. I might have seen Rathy in there, but all the mods, thank you guys as always. Remember, the God of War April gifts are coming to my home this week, so those will be going out soon. And there we go, fellas. That is another episode in the history books. So I appreciate you guys spending some time with me. Your questions, your super chats, your good conversation. Thank you very much. I will see you in the future on a future stream, future game stream, Twitter, all that good stuff. But seriously, thank you guys very, very much. It's much appreciated that you let me do what I love doing these days. I'm very grateful for it. Thank you guys. And of course, be safe, wear a mask, and never, ever fucking forget.
Oh, that's strange. It tastes like... Ah!